Warriors in Jesus' Name, Chapter 18. Logan grunted as his body rolled down the steep sides of the ravine. He finally came to an abrupt halt at the bottom. A few more feet and he would have landed in the rushing water. He looked back up toward the roadway that he'd just taken a tumble from, thanks to the driver in the large black sedan who'd practically run him over. Granted, it was pouring down rain, and they probably couldn't see a kid in blue jeans and black t-shirt walking along the shoulder of the road. Besides, no one would think a kid would even be out here walking along this road in the pouring rain and on a regular school day. He looked down at the hole torn in the knee of his jeans and saw that he was bleeding. His hands were also scratched and bloody because he'd tried to grab at a few rocks and trees to stop his fall. Standing, he drew a deep breath and started the difficult climb back up to the road. It was muddy and slippery, and he knew it was going to take him some time to make it back up, but he didn't care. He wasn't in a hurry because nothing mattered anymore. He was close now, he knew, maybe just a few miles from the turnoff that led to Pale Leaf Canyon. The man who'd given him a ride and dropped him off at the main canyon road had been sympathetic to the plight of a young, misunderstood boy who'd run away from his father and was traveling to his mother's home. It seemed it was getting easier and easier to lie, Logan thought. After falling twice more, he used his fingers as claws and dug the toes of his Nikes into the soft mud on the side of the hill and finally made it to the top of the embankment. This time, as he walked along the side of the road, he listened carefully for approaching vehicles. He was tired and cold and hungry, but none of that mattered. He had to make it to the canyon. That's where everything would end. Thank goodness. Ever since that day he and Jojo and Eric had done the meditation there, he knew he had to go back. First, he'd wanted to go back just to have that amazing feeling again. Now, he wanted to go back to make the awful feeling inside of him go away. And if it didn't work, then he would take matters into his own hands. He had no idea how long he'd been walking. With the constant rain and cloud cover, he couldn't tell what time of day it was. He wiped his nose on the back of his hand as he came around the next curve in the road, and there it was, the large sign announcing the entrance to Pale Leaf Canyon. Logan began to run, but after running for several minutes, he realized their special place must be a lot farther up the road than he remembered. His sides stinging, he slowed down to a walk, but kept trudging along. Even if it was still a long way, he knew he was almost there. It seemed he'd been walking forever when he recognized the picnic area that they'd used. This was the place. Moving quickly now, even though his teeth chattered and his body felt sore and stiff, he climbed the last quarter mile to the top of the cliff and went straight to the very edge. He had to admit, it looked different in the rain. When he'd been there before, it had been warm and sunny, and the sky had been blue, and it seemed like they were surrounded by light. Today it was gray and wet and cold and very uninviting. Still, this was the place. Logan circled around to find the perfect place to sit right on the edge. Then he pulled his legs in as close as he could, closed his eyes, and tried to meditate. New scene. Mark drove faster as the feeling of urgency increased. Bella reached out to hold onto the dash and glanced in his direction, but didn't say anything. She wanted her son, needed to hold him close. She wanted to laugh with him and bake him cookies and help him with his homework. She looked over at Mark, his brow furrowed, his jaw tense. He'd patiently and unselfishly done everything he could to help her and Logan. He'd demanded nothing of her except that she not give up hope. Hope was all she clung to right now. They passed the sign for Pale Leaf Canyon, and she held her breath. It wouldn't be long now. Please be there, Logan, she thought. Please. If he wasn't there, where would they look? Anything could have happened to him. No, she couldn't think like that. Here, Eric and Jojo both yelled. The car slammed to a halt, and Mark jumped from the car. He didn't wait for her, and neither did Jojo and Eric, who leapt from the back seat and followed. Mark running up the hill. Bella tried to keep up. When Mark got to the top of the hill, he stopped. He held his hand up to the others, and Logan stood on the edge of the cliff, looking down. Mark turned and spoke softly to Jojo and Eric. You guys have your cell phones with you? Yes, sir. Call the others and tell them he's here. They should be driving up any minute. Mark moved again, going slowly this time, trying to get as close as he could. Logan was standing so close to the edge he didn't want to startle him. And when Bella caught up with the boys, they stopped her and put their fingers to their lips and whispered that he was there. She closed her eyes in gratitude. Eric went back down to make the phone calls. Jojo stayed with Bella, and the two of them slowly moved toward the top of the hill. When Bella saw Logan standing on the edge of the cliff, she gasped, and Logan spun around, and Mark quickly held his hands up to him. It's okay, Logan. Be careful. It's okay. Logan didn't answer. He only stood there staring. Logan, I want you to do me a favor and take one large step forward. Logan only stood there, a blank look on his face. Please, son, one step forward. Logan stepped forward and Mark let out the breath he was holding. Do you mind if I come up there to talk to you? Mark asked. Logan shook his head, so Mark came forward until he was about 10 feet away. Stop, Logan said softly. Mark stopped immediately. Do you want to talk about this? Mark asked. No, sir. Your mom, she's really worried about you. Why don't you come down to the car where it's warm and we can talk all this out? Logan looked past Mark to his mother, who he could tell was shivering. Go back to the car, Mom, he said. Logan, please, she cried. I don't want you here. I can't leave you, baby, I can't. Logan looked back at Mark, and Mark shrugged his shoulders. She loves you, Logan. You know she's stubborn. She won't leave you, and neither will I. How did you know I was here? Jojo and Eric? They told me you might be here. They're really worried about you. They say you're their brother, and they'd do anything for you. Logan looked back over his shoulder, glancing down at the river far below, and he turned back to Mark. I need for it to stop, he said. Mark nodded, understanding immediately. Logan was talking about the pain in his heart. It will eventually. It takes time. What's one of the first things you learned in my class? Something we stress in every day. Patience. Right. You must have patience, Logan. It takes time for the bad feelings to go away. Well, I can't take any more. Mark swallowed. Yes, you can. You're strong, and you're just as stubborn as your mom. Logan stepped backward. Mark immediately ran forward 2 steps. Logan, wait. Logan stopped, and Mark caught his breath. You have to listen to me. I know what really happened. Logan glanced at his mom. She told us. She told everyone. Your mom made a mistake. She shouldn't have asked you to keep such a hard secret, and what you did wasn't bad or wrong. You saved your mom's life. He was going to kill her, and you saved her, Logan, and I'm so grateful to you for that. You are? Of course I am. If you'd been too afraid to pull that trigger, your mom would be dead, and probably you too. I am so grateful that you were strong and brave enough to pull that trigger. You won. Don't you see? If you jump off that cliff, Logan, then he wins. Don't let him win. I keep having this dream where he's not really dead, and he opens his eyes and he gets me. Your dream is playing out your fears. Listen, Logan, if you hurt yourself, then it will be just like he gets you. Don't let him win. Let us help you. Isn't it worth a try? Logan didn't answer. Now that everyone knows what happened, now that you don't have to keep that hard secret anymore, it will get better much faster. Won't you even give it a chance? Have I ever lied to you? Logan thought hard. I don't think so. Then give it a chance, son, please. Let me repeat what I just said and listen carefully. Now that everyone knows what really happened, it will get better fast. Don't you already feel a little better just knowing that I know what really happened? Logan had to be honest. He did feel like something had been lifted off his shoulders. He nodded his head. Have you thought about what it would do to your mom and me and Jojo and Eric and your Aunt Breeze and everyone else if you were to jump? We would be devastated. Not only that, your mom would never forgive herself. It would kill her. Have you thought about that? Logan shook his head. No, I just wanted it to stop. Mark nodded. He understood that. People say that those who try to commit suicide are selfish, but he knew that wasn't the case. People who try to kill themselves are blinded by the pain they feel. They aren't thinking about anything other than stopping the pain they feel in their hearts. The pain blocks out everything else. He offered Logan a warm smile. Well, now that you have a few seconds to think about it, I want you to think hard about what it would mean to your mom. Logan blinked several times. I don't want to hurt my mom. Good, that's good. Your mom has already been hurt too much, don't you think? Yes, sir, Logan said softly. Now, she has a chance to be happy, but she won't be if anything happens to you. So please, Logan, give her the chance to be happy. Logan thought for a long time before he finally nodded his head, and Mark blew out a breath and took a step forward. Can I come stand next to you? Logan nodded and shrugged. I was scared to do it. I was trying to get up the courage. He twisted to look back over his shoulder and swung his arm wide. It's a long way to... He lost his balance. His arm swung in huge circles. Mark dove for him as Bella and Jojo screamed. Mark landed on his stomach, his hand digging into the slender arm he'd caught. Logan dangled over the edge of the cliff, and he looked up into Mark's eyes. Don't move, Mark said through clenched teeth. I'm losing my grip. Jojo, he yelled, hold on to my legs. Mark felt Jojo and he presumed Bella throw themselves down on the back of his thighs. Logan's wet arm was sliding through Mark's hand. Mark reached down with his other hand. Give me your other hand, he said firmly. I can't, Logan said. If I do, it'll pull my other arm out of your hand. He slipped farther down until Mark was holding only Logan's hand. I'm gonna fall, Logan said, his eyes wide with fear. No, you're not. Don't let go. I'm slipping. Mark knew he was right. He couldn't let it end this way. Listen to me, Logan. You're gonna land on the second ledge. I'm gonna swing you, and you land on the second ledge. He didn't give him time to argue. He swung Logan way out, and when his body swung inward toward the cliff face, his hand slipped away. Bella screamed again, and Mark scrambled to the edge. Logan sprawled on the ledge just below the cliff. Logan, sit with your back against the cliff wall. I'm going to get a rope from my car, and I'll be right back. I'll be down there with you in a second. You're going to be fine. He scrambled up. Lie on your stomachs and talk to him until I get back. Both Jojo and Bella complied. Mark ran toward his car. Eric was halfway down, still on the phone. Where are they? Mark asked. They're almost here. Well, send them up the moment they get here. Yes, sir. Mark grabbed a rope from the back of his vehicle and ran back up the hill. Tying one end securely to the closest tree, he prayed the rope would be long enough to lower himself down to the ledge below. He stretched it out and watched it dangle over the cliff. Plenty of length. Good. He pulled it back up and tied the end around his waist and lowered himself over the edge of the cliff. Please be careful, Mark, Bella cried. Jojo took her hand. Oh, he's good at stuff. He'll be okay. And he'll get Logan back up here. Everything is going to be okay now. Bella smiled at Mark's son, who was so much like his father. She squeezed his hand. Thank you, Jojo. Okay, I'm down here with Logan, Mark called up. Can you hear me? Yes, Dad, I hear you. I'm going to tie the rope to make a harness for Logan. When Jojo and Ricky and Eric get here, tell them I need them to pull Logan up. Yes, sir, Jojo answered. It was only a few minutes later that the troops arrived, and it took only a few seconds for Eric and Ricky to pull Logan up and over the cliff edge to safety, while Joey waited near the edge to help ease him over the rocks. Joey removed the harness and wrapped a blanket around Logan's shoulders and lifted him in his arms to carry him away from the cliff's edge. When he set him down, Bella, Breeze, and Bree took over. Joey went back to the cliff edge and tossed the harness end of the rope back down. Let us know when you're ready, he yelled down to his brother. Joey turned back to Eric and Ricky, who stood closer to the tree so they would have some leverage. Get ready, guys. I guess I don't need to tell you it's going to be a little harder since Mark's got about 100 pounds on Logan. Ricky grinned. I think we can handle it, gunshot boy. Since you're milking it for all it's worth, you just stand there and look pretty. Joey smiled. I can do that. Then seriously, he nodded to Jojo and young Eric. You guys help pull the rope. The boys got into the tug-of-war line. Okay, I'm ready, Mark shouted. Tell them to start slowly so I don't hit my head on the rock above me. I need time to swing out over the canyon. Will do, Joey yelled back. He turned to Ricky. He says, Ricky waved him off. We heard. We're not deaf. Regardless of their banter, Joey knew it wasn't going to be easy to pull Mark up and over the cliff. Mark was 6'3" of solid muscle. Even with all the training and conditioning he had been doing lately, he was probably still around over 200. They began to pull the rope. Had only brought back about 6 inches when Mark yelled up that he was clear. Joey turned to watch to see if they were going to need his help. The boys and Eric and Ricky pulled, their legs braced, their forearm muscles bulging. And then the unthinkable happened. The rope began to break, popping strand by strand and unraveling as he watched. Joey's eyes opened wide. No, he cried as he dove for the rope. The women screamed. Dad, Jojo cried. Joey was able to grab the rope but was being pulled over the side. Ricky and Eric dove for him and were able to bring his body to a halt just at the edge of the cliff. The three of them struggled to hold on to the short length of rope. Joey had it wrapped around his wrist, and it felt like his hand would be severed at any moment. Eric and Ricky had grabbed the rope just a few inches down from Joey's wrist, trying to relieve the pressure. Someone call Jason and tell him we need a rescue chopper, Ricky yelled before he turned back toward the cliff. Mark, you okay? Tell me the rope didn't break. I can't do that. Well, hell, can you pull me up? Trying to get some leverage right now, Ricky said with a grunt, and keep Joey's hand from being torn off. He has the rope wrapped around his wrist. You tell my brother to let go and unwind the rope from his hand right now. Joey closed his eyes with the pain. You know I can't do that, bro, he said. We're having a little trouble holding your weight. If I let go, you're going down. Eric, Mark called. Eric, how bad is it? Logically, can you guys pull me up and maintain your own safety? Ricky and Joey frowned. They knew he asked Eric because he would tell Mark what he wanted to know. However, Eric surprised them. Logically speaking, Mark, Eric said as he struggled to hold the rope, we've never been in this situation, so it would be impossible for me to be able to make that call. All we can do is try to pull you up, so hold tight. Eric nodded at Ricky and Joey. He's not going to get any lighter. You guys ready? They nodded. Together now, Eric said, go. They pulled. Joey cried out in pain. Still, the rope moved up toward them a few inches. Can you make it, Joey? Ricky asked. Yes, just go, Joey grunted. Go, Eric said. They pulled again. At first, Joey didn't understand why the pain suddenly eased. He thought maybe his hand had been torn off, but then, in that fraction of a second, he knew what happened. No, he screamed as the broken rope came flipping up over the edge. Dad, Jojo cried again. Bella sank down to her knees. No, oh God, no. The world seemed silent. No rain, no wind, nothing. Joey, Eric, and Ricky crawled to the edge of the cliff and looked down. All they could see was the churning water about 200 feet below. If Mark's body had hit the water, it would already be downstream. They presumed that's what happened because they couldn't see anything on the ground or rocks. Joey had his hands over his head, his face against the ground. Ricky and Eric sat dazed, pale, and shaken. Bree had her arms around Eric and Jojo, and the three of them cried together. Logan wrapped his arms around his mom, knowing it was his fault. It was all his fault. Eric's cell phone began to ring. He knew it was probably Shelley or Jeffy. Jeffy had probably foreseen what happened. Tears in his eyes, he had to blink several times to read the caller ID. He frowned, then excitedly put the phone to his ear. Mark? Everyone looked toward Eric. Eric scrambled to the side of the cliff so he could get a better view, then spoke into his phone. No, I can't see you. Everyone came to the edge of the cliff. Smiling, Eric turned toward them. He's alive. He says he's about 30 feet down, straddling a tree that was growing out of the side of the cliff. Eric put the phone on speaker. Are you hurt? I got the wind knocked out of me pretty good, Mark answered. And I think I broke a finger 'cause I was trying to grab at anything I could on the way down. I see blood, but I'm not sure where it's coming from, and I'm afraid to move too much to try to find out because, regardless of what the adrenaline junkies say, free falling is not that much fun. Eric looked around at the faces filled with joy that just a few seconds ago had been filled with despair and was really, really glad his wife hadn't been here. I can tell you right now, Mark, there are some pretty thankful people up here, Eric said, his voice thick with emotion. It was several seconds before Mark answered. I bet, he said quietly, and one down here as well. How's Joey's hand? You don't worry about my hand, Joey said loudly. But if it makes you feel any better, I think it's just sprained. Everyone else is okay? Mark asked. He's an idiot, Joey said, asking how we're doing. Oh, no, the tree is breaking, Mark shouted. When no one moved, they heard Mark laughing. Just kidding. Once we get you home safe and sound, I'm going to kick your butt, Joey said. You're going to have to get in line, Ricky added. Everyone agreed and looked up with giant smiles on their faces as they heard the chopping sound of a helicopter as it approached. And that is the end of chapter 18.